Hello, butt munchers. Welcome to my channel. Uh, Hello. It's nearly 3 o'clock in the morning, and this is kind of normal time for me to be up, but I am thinking I should do a Fieros storytime video because if I don't, then I won't be able to sleep properly. Apologies in advance for if the camera goes weird, like if my face suddenly freezes like this, or if the words slow down and and my face does not slow down at the same time. Yeah, apologies for that. So, yeah, I feel like if I don't do this video, then I won't be able to sleep properly. I just need to get some stuff out of my head. So. I feel like I've got like someone to talk about in the Ward 10 situation, right? So there's another person there, and I've got some memories to talk about of some stuff that happened and some experiences that I had with this person. Makes it sound sexual. It's really not sexual at all. But I just feel like I'm not quite. I can't quite. It's like I can't quite push into that territory yet until I feel like I have to kind of bring the story forward to that point again. Like I've talked about hemorrhage, and all the stuff with him and his dementia, and that was kind of funny and tragic. More funny for me than tragic. Yeah. And there are other people in the ward as well, but it's like those memories. It's hard to explain why I can't touch certain memories until a certain point. It's like it's really hard to understand even why is that. It's like it's almost like the memories have to reach a certain point in my mind where they have less emotional charge to them. They have to go like below a certain point of emotional charge, and I have to think about them first for a while, and I have to feel the energy of them for a while, and they have to come up to me, come up in my mind a few times until the emotion of it is like at a level where I feel I can even express it. It's hard to describe because it's like I can obviously see the memories in my head, but I can also feel the memories in my head. And it's like some of them are just too difficult to talk about. Like the memory is too, it's got too much cloudiness around the memory, or it's a bit too over energized, that so that if I did speak about it now, it would be too much for me, and I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't be able to explain it properly, and I'd fall flat and go like wouldn't be able to get through it, and it wouldn't make any sense anyway, and it'd be like, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it's just like I can't quite move the story to there yet. I need to kind of go around it a little bit more. So one thing I like to do is start from the beginning and work forward and see if we can like kind of, it's probably something that in the past that is stuck, that I need to bring that forward or dissolve something in the past, and then it's weird how if you free up the past, you free up the future. So even in thinking about my own story and telling how this process of telling the story works, that if I tell parts of the past of the story, it allows me to move the story forward into the future of the story. So let's say, right, so this, I'll draw a picture of it, might be helpful. So I've got this timeline, yeah, and it's about 10-year timeline between 2004 and 2014. Okay, so what seems to be happening is I kind of go a little bit forward and then I get stuck and I have to go back, but I'm ever so slightly like further on in terms of emotional progression. So it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's more like it kind of just edges its way forward. So I go forward a bit, then I go back, and then I go forward a bit, and then I might take a really big leap forward, for example, and then I go, oh, I can't handle how far I've gone forward. Like I need to go back even further than normal, and then start again, kind of, and then I might just go kind of jump over a load of stuff, kind of like, oh, and then I might go, oh god, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll just wiggle around somewhere for a while. Yeah, I'll be like, ah, and then I'll go really, really deep, and I'll go like, oh, let's get into some emotion of this particular part here, right? I'm going like, okay, let's get really deep, and then I'll go, oh, I need to go back to the beginning of the story. So go back to the beginning there, and then I go, ah, now all of that stuff means I can go whoop, all the way to here. For some reason, it's just cleared out some pathway, and I'm like, ah, and then I go, oh, what about this part that I missed? What about this part that I missed? What about this part that I missed? You see, and just backtrack a little bit there, like boom, boom, boom. And then I'm like, oh god, I forgot about all of this stuff, and I need to go deeper on that part as well. So I forgot about that. Yeah, and then I'm like, oh, but what about the beginning? I love the beginning. The beginning's my best part. Like that's my favorite part of it, because that's when things were okay and life hadn't gone to shit just yet. And I was like, yeah, this is a cool part. Let's remember that part again. That was the best part. Yay! Like there's the beginning. Let's go to the beginning. And I'm like, ah, can't stay at the beginning forever. Let's try and edge our way forward again. Oh, we're just back at the same part, and then I hit a wall. And I'm like, oh, damn, there's a wall now. Oh, we're up here now, sorry. Boom. Oh, there's a wall. We've hit a wall. What can I do? Well, we might have to go deeper, or we can go higher. But higher seems to hit a wall at this stage. Because higher would be like going more into jokey, abstract territory. But deeper might do it. Could go deeper. But then it's also like, there's a wall there of depth. Like, I don't quite exactly know how to go deeper. So another aspect, another way that I could do it would be, for example, to just skip to the end and journey back to try and clear up the part in between there, because obviously I know the ending. This just looks like a mess. Well, this is my brain. This is the psyche. So there's now this hole, because we've hit this wall, which would probably be the Ward 10 wall, yeah, which is full of stuff. I'm just going to put W10 for Ward 10, W10. There, Ward 10, Ward 10, Ward 10. And then, like, so this whole area is like, oh, fuck, hard to talk about. So it's tempting to go back to the beginning or to go to the end, and just like this whole area here, and this is the kind of tricky area that we're in right now, is this whole kind of Ward 10 and Ward 12, and the interim between Ward 10 and Ward 12, and then a bit afterwards as well. It's like kind of, oh god, so much to say, and what to say about it and how to say it, and also like how not to mess it up as well, like don't annoy anyone kind of thing, and don't tell it inaccurately as well. And then there are also still parts back here that aren't quite correct. But there's something strange about this part as well, that it not only is it hard to talk about, but it's also very rich to talk about. So there is a strange sense of order in this part as well, but it's also loads and loads of information in here to talk about, and it's a very short period of time in terms of the history of my life. It's like a lot of information in terms of experiences that happened during that period of time. You know, basically is about 6 months total period in my life that is very concentrated in terms of experience and difficulty and stuff that happens. Right, so there's why the story isn't going forward in a straightforward pattern, because at each point I hit a roadblock, or I remember the things that I've forgotten to talk about, Yeah. So there we go. Good. So I'm not going to talk about Ward 10 just now. We'll have to wait until that comes up naturally and easily again. So it might take a few more videos before more stuff comes up, or it might come up. It might even come up in the later part of this video. I don't know. It might come up as the next thing I say, but I doubt it. It might come up on the next video or whatever. It's like I can't even say the guy's name. I'm trying to think. There's a certain person who I was in the ward with, and I can't seem to say his name. So I'm gonna wait until I can. There's nothing wrong with saying his name. It's just like some blocking me about saying it right now. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning of the story again. By the way, what I'm doing now is also partly I wanted it to be demonstrational as well, because this is a therapeutic process, and if you are a person who has been through some bad experiences, this is what we would call a massive debriefing. It's a massive debriefing, and it's a massive telling of the story to dissolve the emotional tension around it, or the emotional stress around it, difficulty, whatever, the emotional burden. And I want you to feel free to tell your story, and to tell it as many times as you need to, and to tell it in as many different ways as you need to, and to look at it from different angles, and as many different angles as you need to, in order to purge and to feel healed and to remove its burden and to learn its lessons and everything. So, like, obviously, I'm telling the same things over and over again quite often. But I want you to feel okay to do that as well. I want you to feel like you can say the same things over and over again, and to know that each time you do, it's easier to say it this time, and it changes slightly, and you're less weighed down by it, and the thoughts become more ordered about it, and maybe you remember other things that relate to it, whatever. But the overall process is one of long-term moving towards in an orderly direction. You know, it's moving towards healing, it's moving towards change, it's moving towards progress and development, and a coherency, really, a sense of coherency, personal coherency, and a coherency to the narrative as well. Even a linearity to the narrative. At a certain point, I would like to be able to write it as a linear narrative without all this upping and downing and backing and forthing and so on, like just to push through it, like, because that's how I lived it, forward, in a forward movement, like that. Okay, so let's talk about, well, let's go from the beginning, start again at the beginning, and see where we get to. So, beginning really started in 2004. Well, I got given a car for my 18th birthday. I was working at Legoland. I had a car from my mum previous to that. I got given a car by my gran for my 18th birthday, and it was, so she bought it, and it had already had insurance and tax or something, or parents were paying for insurance and tax. I'd had driving lessons, so I could drive already. As I said, I had already been using my mum's car, my mum's old car, little Peugeot 205, which was a great car, great feel to it. It felt like it was going to explode at any moment though, especially on the motorway. It just felt like it was going to explode at any moment. It's like, because it was a manual car, and it didn't have power steering, so it was just kind of manual steering, I suppose you'd call it. Yeah, so it's very, like, you felt everything that was happening, and I don't know if it was just like the suspension was a bit brittle or what, but it was like you go over like 70 miles an hour, and the whole car starts to vibrate as though it's like literally about to explode. That's what I mean. So that was fun, but because of the fact you were really in touch with the road, it was like a more thrilling experience. whereas cars nowadays are very much smooth, and that's a different type of experience in itself. Like that's a very pleasant experience. But this Peugeot 205 that felt like it was about to explode at any minute was a really thrilling experience. Because you're so in contact with the road all the time, and you can feel every bump and every turn, and you're doing all the work both on the steering wheel and on the gear lever. So it's like a very connected, very connected. Like you felt part of the car, and the car felt part of the road. So you felt part of the road, um, and like it's just a thrill. It's a real thrill. Um, and like when you press the accelerator, the car responds immediately to your touch, because in modern cars you've got the accelerator, and then there's like this feeling of certain lag or sponginess. It's not directly responsive to your actual foot press. That there's like a computer in between you. There's like a differential thing going on. So you push your foot down, and there's like that even in the fastest response times, that that it's not a strictly mechanical thing that's happening. There is some interplay of electronics and stuff going on in between the press of the pedal. And with the Peugeot 205, you push the pedal on the thing and it goes like that. It's like, "Ugh." And you push the brake and it goes. So it was a great car. Just for the fact of you couldn't everything you touched had a response to it. Everything you did had it something happened. Whereas the cars nowadays, you get in them and you're kind of like floating around in the sort of bubble of pleasantness. And this car was like, there's no pleasantness. It's just it was cool though. It was really cool. I don't even know. I might even prefer a car like that. If I was going to get another car again. And yeah, so I drove it at 90 miles an hour one time down the motorway with my friend, my drummer in my band at the time, called Chris. And I was driving him back to his house along the M4, and I was just like, yeah, let's see how fast we can make this go. And then he got over 70, and it was like, and he got to 80, it was like, and then he got to 90, it was like, and I was like, oh God, I don't know. I don't think it would go faster than 90, but it felt literally like it could explode if. So I didn't do that for long because I was like, oh God, yeah. So that was great. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then so I got this other car for my 18th birthday, which was a Rover 25 W Reg. W908RLF was the registration plate. And it wasn't a new car when I got it. It was a few years old, 3 years old, I think. It was a 2001 car. So, but it felt like a new car. Like it felt new to me. Like I wouldn't compare with my other one, but it was a really old 205. It must have been at least 15 years old by the time I got my hands on it. And that was back in the days when it was like, so it must have been made in the 80s. No. No, maybe it was made in the 80s. Might have been an 80s model of the 205 or the 90s. I don't know. Anyway, it was an older car. So yeah. Okay, whatever. So I got this new car, which was great because it was nice and it had power steering. It was my first real car, I suppose. I mean, I had the Peugeot 205, but that felt like it was my mum's car because I'd been driven around in it before. But this was my car because it hadn't been owned by anyone else I knew of. And yeah, and it was a good car, Um, it was a good car. I had a lot of sex in that car. But we had a problem with the sunroof started to happen where it just the seal was dodgy and it started to leak, and so I had to tape it up and stuff, which is annoying. And the thing with cars is that, like, obviously no car stays in perfect condition for very long, so they're always in need of repair, and things like kind of age and get broken, need replacing and stuff like this. And eventually, the lifespan of that car was, I don't know, maybe about 10 years or something that I had it. And then um, the engine basically just seized. The engine seized up for some reason. Just, don't know, old, too much mileage, too much usage. You know, maybe hadn't been looking after it well enough. I don't know. But yeah, it just seized and uh, wouldn't was about to kind of. Well, we managed to. No, we managed to still drive it. We managed to drive it down to the what do you call it? No, did we drive it or did it get towed? I can't remember. But I took it to a scrap place basically, and we ended up getting like £100 for it or something. Um, to just get it scrapped because it wasn't fixable. It was going to be like £600 to fix it, which was probably more than I could have got for the car. So we just ended up scrapping it. And then I got a Renault Clio. Yeah, Renault Clio 1.4, which was a cool car as well. That car I feel like was more my car self-owned because I paid. Well, was it who helped? I think it was my gran paid like. I think my gran paid £800 and I paid £1,000, or vice versa. So it was co-bought between me and my gran. But I felt like it was more of mine because I'd put more of my money into it. I put some money into it for a start, and also I was, I believe, I was paying my own insurance, or it was part of the. Was it part of the family? I don't know. I don't know. But that was a good car, man. That was a good car. It had a bloody. It had a hole in the seat, which was already there when I bought it. I think someone had burned like, cigarette had burned a hole in it into the chair. But that was like part of the charm that it had a hole in it. I don't know how much sex I had in that car. A little bit, maybe. That was my car. And if I'm going to get a car again, even though it's not the coolest car in the world, I'd get a Renault Clio. The next car I get, I want to get a Renault Clio just for a bit. So I feel like I have got my old car back again. And then I'd probably sell it. Or just keep it and get a new one. A different type of car. But yeah, I feel like that was my car as well, because it was around a time when like when I was 18 and I got my Rover 25. I wasn't really developed in myself, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't have much of a respect for the car. um it was just like an item that I was given, and I liked it and I used it, but I didn't feel it to be mine fully. I didn't treat it with the sense of respect that I did with the next car. So the next car I had more of a connection with because I'd chosen it for a start. I hadn't chosen my Rover 25, so that was another thing. To choose your own item, to choose your own thing, your own car, whatever, it makes it more meaningful. It makes it more important because it's more of a representation of who you are rather than like a representation of what someone else has given you or whatever. So yeah, I chose it, which meant it was more mine. And I'd put my own money towards it, which meant it was more mine as well. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford to keep it running. I couldn't afford to keep it, so I probably only had it for a couple of years in total, and I ended up selling it to my ex-girlfriend's mum. Which is a shame because I really like that car and I wish I had it. I wish that well, I don't wish I hadn't sold it, because if I hadn't sold it, then I would have been even worse off financially than I am now. I made the decision to sell it because I was basically going through a time in my life where I didn't know what I was going to do next financially with regard to work and stuff. So I couldn't afford to keep it on the road, and I didn't really think about having it declared off road or whatever you call that. Yeah, So I just sold it, and it sucks because I had to sell it. Financially, I had to sell it, but I regret selling it because I could really do with a car, and I could have really done with a car on many, many occasions. And I miss fucking driving my car. I miss driving about in a car. I miss having the ability to just jump in my car and go off to somewhere random. You know, like when you got a car, I used to do stuff like I'll just go zip down the motorway and go to a different service station. I'll just go zip over in my car to meet one of my friends. But now like, everything's so much more difficult with public transport because you have to wait for a certain period of time. It costs money to do that. Things might not come on time. Um, and there's walking involved or the cycling to get to a train station or to walk to a bus stop. And it's like effort involves much more planning. Um, and maybe it just sounds like I'm whining, but it it is like the options I find are much more limited when you have when you don't have a car. But when you have a car, your options of where you can go and when you can go there, um, it's just like it opens up new a whole new world. It opens up a whole new world, new horizons. I've got a car again. I can go anywhere. Let's do make a whole new car world with you, me, us, my car. Give me a car. Hmm. Yeah, I used to love just like going down the motorway. I didn't love it actually. To be fair, I felt like I had to go nip down the motorway just to get some peace and quiet from my family. Sometimes I go nip down the motorway and go to a service station, do some writing at a service station. But overall, that was good. Like because the amount of times I would have loved to just nipped away from my mum in my own car over the past 2 years. Oh man, it would have been so good. And I used to go down to the park as well. I used to just like drive down to the park. And believe it or not, I got told off for driving down to the park because of the emissions I was putting into the fucking environment. And I was thinking, what about the emissions of your negativity into my brain? Did you think about that one? Huh? Did you think about that one? Yeah. But yeah, I used to love uh, driving in down to the park. I say love again. It was actually felt more like a necessity that I had to do it because if I didn't go and spend some time by myself in the park, then I would go actually insane with my parents and my brother in my family life at that time. Now this was after I'd come out of hospital, so I've skipped over the hospital part again. Yeah, so this is the theme of cars, seems to be the theme of today. So we've got three cars I've had. And then after that Renault Clio, I then got put on the insurance for my mum's car, right? Um, but I ended up taking myself off that eventually because it was annoying. Basically, I could only use the car when my mum wasn't using it, which meant that I had to have discussions with my mum about whether or not she was using the car, which meant that I had to have more interactions with my mum than I would like to have had because I was going through a real rough patch with my mum. Uh, like our relationship was really not good at all. There was a lot of argument between us. This was over the past 2 or 3 years, or maybe 3 or 4 years. I don't know. So her and I were having a lot of arguments quite often, and it was like I don't want to spend extra time. I don't want to spend extra time interacting with this person who I don't like at the moment, who's giving me hell, who I'm giving hell to as well, and I just don't want to interact with her to ask her if I can use the car or when is she using the car and like having all these questions, and there's like this sort of subtle tension around me asking if I could use the car as well. So I was just like, fuck it off. Let's just fuck it off. It's too much to think about. Like I need to minimize my stress situation. So even though it was good to have the car, it was annoying because there was stress about asking my mum, there's stress about the invasion of like me asking her about her timetable so that I could use the car, and it was a kind of codependent thing going on there. And then also there's a thing about petrol money as well. Like I didn't really have enough money to put petrol money in there really, and so I felt bad about not giving enough petrol money. And then oh god, it was just a mess. So um, yeah, so fuck that off. And also there was the fact that I felt bad that my mum was paying for me to be on her insurance, so that was another way that I was being dependent on her. So again, another codependency thing. So I was just like, Matt, okay, just take me off the insurance, right? I don't want to have to I don't have to interface with you about this car thing because it's obviously like a loaded issue in various different ways, mainly for money, and also for like the invasion and the enmeshment between us two. So let's fuck it off. No, let's get me off the insurance. Like I'll deal with it. I can't. I've got too much to think about, and also, uh, I noticed I'd done a couple of bits of drink driving as well. Like I'd had 3 beers, once or twice, and then driven home. And I thought this is bad, man. Like I don't accept this kind of behaviour from myself. You know, that was getting silly. Like go out to the pub, have a limit of how much you could drink because you're driving, and then go over that limit and then drive home. I was just like, no, what are you doing? This is silly. So you need to stop this. And there were so many reasons why it was a good idea to not be insured on my mum's car anymore. So I did. I got off it. And there were some other occasions where other drunken people who I was taking home when I was not drunk were like putting my situation in jeopardy. Like there was one occasion where I was taking a bunch of guys home. Actually, maybe I was a bit drunk. Maybe I had had too much that time, and they were like flashing the lights and stuff and beeping the horn and like turning the music up really loud. Um, in the car, and I was like, dude, you are gonna get us in fucking trouble. No, it wasn't because I was drunk. Sorry, no, I hadn't drunk. I don't think I drunk anything that night. It was the fact that I'd taken home too many people in the car, and it was piled full of people, um, on the back seat, and like then the ones in the front, the one in the front was like twiddling with knobs and like pressing the horn and turning the music up really loud. That was the main thing. The music got really loud with the windows open and stuff. And I was like, dude, we've got too many people in the car already. I'm not sure if I'm drunk or not in this scenario. Probably have had too much. But you are jeopardizing my fucking. You're jeopardizing our safety for one thing because like you're distracting me and you're like twiddling things while I'm trying to drive. And secondly, you're attracting attention to us. So if we get pulled over, I'm going to get fucked. So yeah, there's just a lot of reasons to not be insured on that car anymore. So I got off it. Yeah. Well, I did have sex in that car as well. I've had sex in every car. Oh yeah, and I was insured on my brother's car for a while as well, which was a Renault Megane, and I had sex in that car as well. Went down to a trip to Brighton in that car and had sex in it. Yeah, went with a girl I was seeing from around here. We went down to Brighton together and just had sex in the car and came home. There's more to it than that, but yeah. So where put the little story down. Okay, well that's a cars scenario. What else can I talk about? Mr. B is still a topic I haven't really covered properly. I keep saying this. I mean, like, what do I mean by that? What do I want to talk about him? Well, last time I said that he was pursuing me. He was pursuing me, but what was my part in it? I don't know. It's also like, why does it matter so much? He called me scum. Did I say that before? He called me scum. He called me up just to have a go at me, and I just listened to him for ages, and then he just called me scum. And then I just finally said, look, I don't actually have to listen to you giving me all this abuse. I'm going to put the phone down now. Bye. Alright, I'm getting tired now, so I'm going to call it a day on this video. But there you go. There's my car adventure through all the different cars I've used. I want a new car.